So Bangladesh has a large number of impacts. If we go from south to north, you have the sea level rise, which is all estimates are showing that it is beyond the Intergovernmental Panel of Climate Change estimate of approximately 86 centimeter by end of the century. Now it will be 1.5 meter or even more. And we are saying that by 2050, 2075, there will be more than 1 meter sea level rise, which means 17 to 18% of the land of the country, 13% of the population would be affected. Many of them will be displaced.
Every year we lose 1% to 1.5% GDP because of the climate change. And because of the climate change, our dream, the dream of the people of this country to make their future better, and dream of the people of this country, dream of our leader Sheikh Hasina to transform this country into a developed country is slowed down.
They are unable to continue their development process. So as if they go back in time. Every time they try to go up, they fall back. And this is what we are calling poverty hysteresis induced by climate change.
জলবায়ু পরিবর্তনের প্রভাব মোকাবেলায় অত্যন্ত গুরুত্বপূর্ণ এই সম্মেলনের উদ্বোধন অনুষ্ঠানে উপস্থিত সকলকে আমি আমার আন্তরিক শুভেচ্ছা জানাচ্ছি, বিশেষ করে বিদেশ থেকে যারা এসেছেন তাদেরকেও। আমরা জাতিসংঘের জলবায়ু বিষয়ক ফ্রেমওয়ার্ক কনভেনশনের আওতায় ব্যাপক আলোচনা শুরু করতে যাচ্ছি। আগামী জুনে রিও+20 অনুষ্ঠিত হবে, যেখানে বিশ্বব্যাপী সহনীয় উন্নয়নের সবুজ অর্থনীতি গড়ে তোলার করণীয় নির্ধারণের কৌশল নিয়ে বিশেষ আলোচনা হবে।
The impact of climate change has already undermined many of the ecological foundations of our ability to provide for basic needs. Growing emissions threaten lives of vulnerable peoples around the world, in Bangladesh, in the Horn of Africa, and in the small island states.
Climate change represents an issue which is cross-cutting in nature. It has implications for agriculture, it has implications for water resources, for food security, for health, sanitation, the whole spectrum of issues. So when you have very limited time and you're trying to create the maximum impact within the limited time that you have available, you have to be very selective in the issues that you choose. And I think climate change is a defining challenge for us, not just for this generation, but also for future generations.
Yeah, Maldives is in the front line of climate change and the effects of it. Maldives has low-lying islands and the sea level, it's just 1.5 meters above sea level, the highest altitude in Maldives. So therefore all the islands are heavily exposed to sea level rise, and also the coastal erosion and all the factors that are related to climate change.
Those are floods, droughts, landslides, sometimes mudslides, and those are very, very, very fatal. In most cases, for instance, in the last about 2 years, we had a terrible landslide that killed over 300 people. Almost at the same time, we had a third of the country underwater, floods. But then immediately after that one, after 3 months, there was a very terrible drought. So food security is affected, animals are affected, people are affected. Climate change is that bad in as far as our country is concerned.
For indigenous communities, it's a matter of life and death. We have, since time immemorial, lived from the forest. We've taken care of the forest. We are children of the forest. We have been able to maintain it through years, and through a process of deforestation, logging, and exploitation of our resources, the land is continuously being taken from us.
In this context, I believe that members of parliament are well positioned to move this agenda forward. And so, Bangladesh Parliament wishes to promote a greater role of parliamentarians as well as substantive cooperation and alliances.
Parliamentarians are the leaders who hold the democratic mandate to represent people. They represent people's interests and people's concerns and have the legislative power to engage in mitigations and bring forward better policies to fight and bring an end to climate change. The International Meeting of Parliamentarians in Dhaka features parliamentarians from more than 20 countries in the world. They have united with the slogan, "One voice, one goal" to combat climate change.
Parliamentarians in every parliament in the world can give a voice to issues. They can put items on the agenda, they can ask for knowledge, they can organize hearings, they can ask international organizations to put things on the agenda. For instance, Women and Climate Change has been asked by women's groups to be on the agenda.
In policy terms, we had an environmental report done by the Parliament's Climate Change and Environment Committee in 2005. That laid the political basis for cross-party action. In 2009, our Climate Change Act was world leading, both in Scotland and the UK. There's been a strong parliamentary commitment to legislate on climate change. Our Climate Change Act specified that we would accept the science, that we'd give ourselves targets, and the particular targets, I think, are the 42% reduction in CO2 emissions by 2020.
The people should be more concerned by developing, the social awareness. Capacity building can be by social awareness. So the parliamentarians are very much important tools that they can convince their constituents by giving some ideas about what will be the responsibility of the constituent to come up from that problem area by which they can be survived.
The government has to provide an alternative, like employment measures to them, and government had to really, by providing them an alternative towards the employment measures, providing them is like unemployment allowance. I think that is one of the area where they cannot have to, search for their livelihoods in the forest by cutting down the trees. So I think this is how. And another source of thing is, the government, our government, especially the Nepal government, is providing more support towards the renewable energy. Most of our villages has got now solar panels, and so this kind of supports that the government has already implementing. I think this is some of the positive steps that our government have initiated.
With the Hyogo Framework for Action being adopted globally, right away the Philippine Parliament as well passed two major legislations. This is the Climate Change Act that mandated the creation of a Climate Change Commission. It's headed by the President of the Republic to review policy strategies and come up with an action plan that will ensure mainstreaming of climate change adaptation in all government agencies, both central and local governments. And in 2010, we likewise passed the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act.
We came up with some basic policies and strategies. We came up with energy conservation policy. We came up with wetland and rangelands policies. We came up with forest policies. We celebrated 2009 as Environment Year. We incorporated in syllabus and curriculum environment as a subject for school children as well. So they should get awareness in it. We came up with some basic legislations as well. Endangered species is another part of climate change, and endangered species, animals and birds, we came up with legislation that they should be protected.
South Africa has already committed itself, like what the developed economies have done, to say that by 2020 we would have reduced emissions, by a certain percentage, and that very few countries in the developing world have done that. That's just a first indication of our proactive and commitment that we'll do that. Beyond that, we are also looking at an integrated approach in energy, sourcing. That is now not only relying on coal simply because our country is endowed with coal, but introducing and very vigorously to renewable energy, particularly wind and solar energy. That's what is happening, in our country right now as I talk to you.
I think at the national level, parliamentarians, they usually think about their own countries. Now I think they should think about not only own country, about the whole globe, and which is not very easy because maybe 20% of the parliamentarians in the whole world, maybe they understand the whole thing. 80% of the parliamentarians, they understand their own country and so on and so forth. So some sort of advocacy, very high standard, high utility advocacy among the parliamentarians is also essential because they are the people's representative. They make policies and they make allocations.
The role of the Auditor General has to be brought into any oversight function. So
we have 11 members in each committee.
But how
Who
is
selects
it
who?
constituted by the parliament? Do they vote for the members to become a member?
Yes,
of
because
nomination? Because
ratio of-
normally what happens, it's give and take.
You have an excellent presentation and you have narrated your own experience. It's very good experience. The interaction which you have with the students there in Canada is similar interaction.
I think generally speaking there was a sense that you are members of parliament and you have constituents.
We're borrowing this planet from our children, and reference to children I think would be very, very important.
I think we have to find alternatives. Some of these developing countries, they are looking to get use of these, to take these fossil fuels and generate power.
You see the same thing with women. So what I'm working for with these local communities is a pendulum swing. This will come up again, and then men and women should be ready to pick this up quickly, because for this world we need to make this transition. Well, for me already today I have 2 or 3 new ideas to try and invite parliamentarians from the developing countries to come and talk to parliamentarians in my parliament that don't find climate change a very important issue. So in that way we can strengthen each other. We've also exchanged email addresses to maybe put the same motion in all parliaments. I think the example motion from Bangladesh on nuclear weapons is a very good point to maybe put in many parliaments and say, okay, if Bangladesh can pass this motion, so can we. And in that way we can reinforce and strengthen each other.
We have members of parliament from virtually all regions of the world. We have from Asia and Pacific, we have parliamentarians from South Africa, from East Africa, from West Africa. We have parliamentarians from North America, from South America, and also from Europe. So all of the major regions of the world are actually represented. And I think that is what is unique about this particular event and the initiative. So if you have parliamentarians from so many different countries, which represents the spectrum of the climate change discussion and challenge, then if you can find consensus, if you can network with those other MPs, I think that is a huge first step forward.
I'm sure Bangladesh is well prepared just to meet the requirement and to see that the resources we have from our internal resources and also the external resources, the commitment which was made, perhaps I don't know how much is available with the existing need of our problem. But we are more capable to just, as you have seen, a lot of legislations are being done to protect the climate change in the national, international, and also in the global context.
To see that the problems came, that is Cedar and Isla, these 2 things came to Bangladesh, storms, you see, and the floods.